Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people are warned that this podcast may contain the voices and names of people who have passed away. Listeners are also advised that this podcast may have references to trauma, violence, and other content that may be triggering. It is not suitable for children, and listener discretion is advised. The producers of Blak Justice recognise the traditional owner groups and clans on the lands on which it is recorded, the Yagara and Turrbal people in Brisbane. They pay respect to the Aboriginal elders, both past and present. This country has never been ceded. This always was and always will be Aboriginal land.
And there's a part of me that always regrets this. I never reported him to the police, ever, because, and I know exactly where it comes from, because of my father and his experience with the justice system, and I never wanted to do that to another black man.
This is Blak Justice, a podcast sharing the lived realities of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people impacted by the justice system. Stories from survivors, families and communities. Justice told our way. I'm your host, Carly Wallace. I've spent over 20 years in the media and community sectors storytelling and working with our mob. I'm an Aboriginal woman with lived experience. My family and my community have been impacted by incarceration in many ways. So join me on Blak Justice, where truth-telling leads the way, because our stories matter and justice begins with telling them. Today on Blak Justice, I'm bringing you the story of Leah. That's not her real name, but we'll call her that to protect her identity and her children's identity in this episode. Leah is a strong Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander woman with cultural ties to North Queensland and northern New South Wales, and she's a survivor of family and domestic violence. In Queensland, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander women are 32 times more likely to be hospitalised for domestic and family violence, and are 10 times more likely to die due to an assault. Yet despite being victims, many Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander women fear the justice system. Not only the danger of reporting, but the reluctancy to see their man be jailed or to involve the police due to mistreatment. Leah's story holds the complexities of being a domestic violence survivor despite minimal help from the justice system. A decade on, Leah reflects on the relationship that could have ended her life if she hadn't got out.
Grew up in black family, very mixed. Dad, very fair-skinned Koori, mum, Torres Strait Islander. And essentially we grew up off country. Dad was in and out of jail when we were kids, so I guess that's probably my earliest experience with the justice system. And we were that black family that used to go and visit our dad in prison. One of my earliest memories of that would be when I was in year 5 and I was 10. And I remember I felt a really strong sense of shame around it. But as I've gotten older, I realise it's not mine to carry. And I think those experiences have shaped me to be someone, and I've never ever gotten into it, and I don't know why, because I'm really passionate about the experiences of mob in the justice system and what life looks like for them when they get out, because essentially it's impacted my whole life, our whole lives, me and my siblings. Mum, I think she done the best she could with us. She had addictions as well, mostly gambling, which, those sorts of things. A dad with a drug addiction and in and out of prison, and a mum who gambled, it really impacts any, I don't know if you'd say opportunity or potential for us as, black kids that were good at sport or smart at school, because there's just no money to send you anywhere. But there's a part of me, as much as that experience, I'm like, fuck, like that was shit. I really hate that it took that struggle to teach me these lessons. And I know how much it impacted me, because I understand now, and out of all my siblings, I'm one of the most kids. I'm on my own. I've got 4 kids on my own. But I look at my kids, they don't even know what struggle I went through. And I'm like, I know that, essentially they have, they've been raised by a single mother. No, they don't have a dad who's in and out of prison. It's just me. But I've got a pretty decent job. They've got it really good. They haven't really had to stress about, is food coming in? Do we have clothes on our back? Is money an issue, sort of thing? And it's not to say like, oh, I'm raking it in and life's easy. But I can just see as time's gone by, like reflecting on my own childhood, how early I learnt things because of the environment I was in. I can see how my upbringing has impacted my life and the choices, again, that I have made in men. And I was actually reflecting on this earlier today with like a different circumstance. And, it's like abandonment wounds and all of this stuff that you just don't even realize you're holding, and you don't realize how much your environment and your child will just impact the people you choose to have relationships with. And these patterns, when you stop and reflect and you're like, oh, that avoidant attachment style, oh, I had that with my dad. And it's almost like in romantic relationships as I grew up, I was subconsciously attracted to that. Like I had to prove my worth.
Yeah, modeling.
And I know, and I can sit here now at 39 years old, and I realize where it comes from. But like, I wish 19-year-old me knew this.
Yeah.
Because I would have saved myself so much shit had I have made different choices.
Do you think though that generation, like, I'm 41, I grew up with domestic violence, and one of my earliest memories is, cops coming to get my dad and him getting locked up and police in and around. And it's one of those memories that you lock away, and then you just don't really think about it because you are it's so normalized, and it sounds a bit the same as you. And then you don't realize until you grow older and unpack and you have your own experiences with relationships and other things where you go, oh, I've modeled my attachment or my whatever else on that. Do you think it was that generation too that we grew up in? Like, what we're talking kind of late 80s, to the early 90s?
Yeah, and I think, and I really hate this term, but like the Australian culture, like broader society at the time, and our families, as mob families, were a part of this too.
Yeah.
There was a lot of accepted alcohol abuse. There was a lot of accepted DB. Yeah, so as much as I'm like, oh shit, like that's not normal, I don't know many kids who, like in our generation, especially mob kids, who didn't experience or witness that in some way. But I there's a part of me that's like, I do like that, when our generation become parents, and it's definitely not that we're better, because I've obviously gone through crap and whatever else where I'm like, oh, what have I given my children that they're going to need to work through? But there's not one of us that isn't guilty of that. And trying to own that and work from that is fucking huge. It's a very big magnitude of work. But at that point in time when we were children growing up, it was, like you said, like it was normalized. And especially as mob kids, like I don't know many mob kids who didn't have that kind of experience where there wasn't a lot of drunkenness around them or a lot of DV, even if it wasn't in their household, seeing aunties and uncles, cousins, like, because I remember that too. Like I remember that experience from my dad's brothers and people that would be around at drinking parties and whatever else. So it's not like it was just my parents, essentially. Yeah. It was who was around. Yeah.
And it was so kind of normalized, right? And it was that Australian society stuff. It wasn't just black fellas, but you add on top of it, my dad's white, so you can't say it's just a black thing. But you have my mum who, and probably the same as your mother and other Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander people who had that intergenerational trauma, who are learning the things that they learned growing up with their abusive parents and so forth. So you get generations of it. So then it comes to you and now, at our ripe old ages, trying to unpack of like, oh, okay. And thinking about Blak Justice, what was my earliest memory with the justice system? And that's one of my earliest memories. And I know, like you said, it's not unique to me or you, but then how has that shaped you now? So You said you touched on when you were around 19, I wish 19-year-old me knew then what I know now. What do you mean by that when it comes to relationships?
I think what I mean by that is I wish I knew my worth. Whereas I think, as we get older and we have more experiences and we become more of ourselves, which that makes sense, there's a lot of things that we won't tolerate or we've recognized patterns in that anymore. And it's like, well, hang on, let's be serious. Growing up Black in this country, in a society that is racist and where Eurocentric standards of beauty are what is considered beautiful, or, we were always in the background. So I feel like, you hear these things and, oh, Black women, Aboriginal women, they're the most unloved and unprotected women in society. But like, I think we hear these things and it's like, yeah, but why is that true? And my mind goes back to little me who felt ugly because I didn't look a certain way. So as we get older and we start to bloom, we can't even see how beautiful we are, essentially. And we've grown up with really negative, well, let's just say imagery of what beauty is. And we don't look like that. We don't essentially fit that. So I think our self-esteem, it really was quite low.
Yeah.
And then as we've gotten older, like we've built up ourselves, we have, our sisters, and there's been a big shift in culture on what beauty looks like now compared to when we were growing up. And I think that it really matters. So I know 19-year-old me who had never even been given much attention or anything like that before, like, and all of a sudden when you get bombarded with it, it's like, oh, like, well, like you don't even have the right tools to decipher what is good for you because you've been considered, well, essentially an ugly duckling your whole life. Like, do you know what I mean? It's like, and then all of a sudden you've got a little bit of attention. And then how many of our sister girls end up with the wrong ones? It's Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander women. Not a lot of us date outside of our own mob. I don't want to be negative or say all Black men are like this, because that's not what I'm trying to say. But so many of us have those experiences of violence from our own men. There was a part of me that felt really angry about that for a long time too. But then when we talk about how we grew up, they grew up like that too.
That time as well of dating, like you talk about beauty standards have changed, but dating standards as well have changed, as in the love bombing, the coercive control signs, like coercive control, that didn't even exist, that label, when you and I were, 19 dating and like you said,
even red flags.
Red flags didn't exist. None of these terms. And if you've grown up, like you said, you're growing up in small towns, communities, regional areas, and you're modeling a behavior you've seen of like someone staying with someone, or someone's baby daddy is not, as in your own father, isn't 100%, and that person still stays with them, and that's all you know, and your world's so small, you will model that behavior at some point, especially if you have no education around how I should be treated. My self-esteem is low. My beauty standards, how I feel about myself and what I'm told by the world is low. Yep. So you've got all these things. Then on top of it, it's a familiarity, right, with the other Black fellas that you go, that's what I know and that's who I know. And when that Black man is starting to show you some attention, not necessarily love, but attention.
Yeah.
You start to pick up on that, yeah? And so that happened, what age for you did that start happening?
Like, essentially I was quite young, and like I remember my first experiences of it when I was like in Cairns and like up north, and I was like, what is this? I honestly was blindsided. I never experienced that before in my whole life. Like, I was in year 10 and I was just like, what the hell? But then when I think about relationship wise and all of that, probably would have been around 20, 21. And it's like, oh, yep, I'm ready for this now. This is what we do. Before I'd ended up in this relationship that got like terrible, I was actually dating this guy who throughout my whole life, like, he was the most loveliest and good person in a good way. And I was like, in my head, I thought there was something wrong with him. And it took me, I was so much older when I realized he says, actually fucking something wrong with you.
Yeah,
Because you
yeah.
can't accept that someone could treat you good and be honest with you and be gentle with you. Like, I didn't think I deserved that. Like, what the fuck is wrong with me? But I know my self-esteem and my head, like, I was messed up. I
Yeah.
really was. And I couldn't accept, I didn't think that something that good was meant for me. Like, I couldn't accept that for myself because my self-esteem was low.
And it was unfamiliar. It's not.
Yeah. So it felt unsafe.
Yes, it felt unsafe, and it feels like that's weird. That doesn't. Where in
Yeah.
fact that's normal. That's the normal standard. Wherein you and I and others are having these terrible, like, we're attracted to the red flag because that's familiar. That's what we know.
Yeah.
And yeah, why would I go with this nice boy here who's trim? You're weird. Like, get away from me. That's weird.
Yeah,
And
what's wrong with you?
yeah,
Because like I know like the situation that I ended up in, like it could have ended my life. But it's like I'm glad I know what I know, but I wish I knew it sooner. That's what I mean when I say I want 19-year-old me, like what I wish she knew.
so let's
Yeah.
talk about this man that was the red flag, was the bull, that instead of the nice guy, you met somebody else who turned out to, like you said, almost kill you. How did you meet him, I guess, and what age were you, and how did it come about?
It was just before I was 21, and I just feel so old saying that, having turned 39. Um,
Yeah.
like, what happened? Where did that time go? I was living in community. I was living with my cousin, actually. I don't know why I was so hell bent on him. Like, I think back and I was like, why did I just think he was so great? Why did I even want to be with him? Anyway, so I got in with him like I said I would because I like a challenge. I don't know. And I was with him for 7, 8 years off and on. But I remember when I got to a certain point and I had like the most minimal education on anything about those talks of red flags, narcissist, those sorts of terms. And they have the circle of violence. And I'd been at this women's shelter in Weeper and I was pregnant. And it was like they had this really simple diagram of the circle of violence. And I was like, holy shit. I literally see my relationship in this simple picture. Like it blew my mind. And I remember it clear as day. And I was like, what? Yeah. So it was quite early on that it got again like love bombing and all of that. Didn't know what
Yeah.
that
How,
was
how long was, like, were you together, I guess, before you got
before it
pregnant, and
started.
like, and what were the signs of, I
Um,
guess, violence that
Look,
started?
it was really, really quick. It was so quick, and we were like together. It wasn't even 6 months that we were living together. Like, who the fuck does that?
Love
And I'd never
bombing.
done that before. Yeah.
Where were you at your life at this point? Like, what were you doing? Because tell people,
Uh,
like, paint the picture of where you were in your life before you met this guy.
so I was studying. I was at Batty, and I was actually doing really well. And I completed my first year. So that was like when I met you. I was like 20. Yeah, I would have been 20, and you were heading to 22. I
How dare
remember
you?
that. And you're like, go on then. Oh, geez, it feels like so long
Mm-hmm.
ago. I remember the first thing, like, and I'd go away for study, I'd go for block, and I'd come back, and it was like my ticket out of community, essentially. And I loved it because I could leave and go and do my blocks. You know, when you live in a small town, and yes, we'll go into a small town, but it's just that buffer that you needed. It was really early in, like I said, and we were living together, and he was so jealous. It's like a photo of like me and Bella, and he was so jealous of him, and I'm like, oh, okay, like it's not even like that. Like I can't even, like what's wrong with you? It just that he was just so insanely jealous of him, and essentially it wasn't long after that till there was just so much pressure and so much fight that I just dropped out to save it, and I was halfway through my second year, and I was doing well, and you know what? I've never gone back. Yeah, so that would be one of the earliest things. Like, was this insane jealousy towards Bella, and I'm like, what the hell? Like I didn't get it. Yeah, and then the behaviours come out more and more. And then just to save the argument, really, I just left it. And there was a point there because I lived in community. See, it's 3 kilometers away, and he was getting a bit funny about me going to work. And I'm like, it's fucking 3 Ks away. I
Yeah.
really dug my heels in with that, and I kept my job because I loved it. But he did really make it hell for a while until he realized I wouldn't leave. But just that level of control. And it's so hard to recognize when you love somebody. it's the worst part. And I know there's so many situations where, why didn't you just leave? Why didn't you
Yeah.
think? And it's like, when people love somebody, man, we do stupid things. We do.
But also, you with the low self esteem at the time we were talking about, when someone's jealous over you, you're like, yeah, he loves me. It's a sick way that we view things at that age, at that time when you're, in this relationship, like, oh, he's jealous, like, oh, he must proper love me. Like, oh, I might be wrong, but I remember having the same feelings with men. Like if they got jealous or it was like, oh yeah, he proper cares about me. It was like, that's sick. Like that is so dumb. And now that you go, oh my God. Like, so there's that going on as well as you love this person. So you couldn't even go 3 kilometers down the road. He's getting jealous.
Been an issue.
You've at this point, you've dropped out of your study. He's getting jealous of your friends. Is it?
Oh, sis, my cousin's in community. Like, sis, I could see her house from my front veranda and he didn't want me to go there. Yeah, so it got to the point where that even happened. And there was just so many things that I just went along with to save the argument. As I think about it more and more, I'm like, I was insane, but I know how much of a different person I am now.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know how, but you know what I mean? Like, you think of yourself at 22 and it's like,
and
who am I at this age? Like, I was just so different.
Yeah.
Like,
and you weren't insane. That little diagram of a pattern of violence, you were in that. So you look back and go, oh, I must have been crazy. But when you're in that cycle of violence, which we know as now is like it is a cycle of domestic violence, but also coercive control and the stages, when you have no idea of that, didn't even exist, the words narcissist never got said, all of these terms. So you weren't mad, you weren't crazy, you were in that. And
I was in it.
Yeah, you were in it. So how long before then that you got pregnant? And then when did, I guess, it go from arguing and jealousy and that type of control to physical violence?
I was pregnant pretty quickly. It would have been like within the year. But before then, it had already gotten physical. And I remember like one of the earliest instances, and I was at like a drinking party essentially. Yeah, I was at a drinking party and he was there and he just kind of like grabbed me and like manhandled me and kind of slapped me up the side of the head. And I was just like, what the fuck? Like, I remember how much it shook me. And I sort of like got away and I sort of took off. And there was like some sort of fight or something happening. And he was like trying to go home and he was ready to go. And he wouldn't leave because he was just like calling out for me. Like he knew I was still there. And and this is like, I can't even get wild at people, but like people are like, oh, just go. Like, so he doesn't lose control. And I'm like, he's obviously heightened. He's obviously been in an altercation. And
you want me to go
people are just
out?
like, you just go. And I did because of how much peer pressure there was just to go and like go with him just to save.
So he didn't kick off and ruin the party, right? They didn't want him to come in and carry on. Yeah.
Jesus. Yeah. So I do, like, I remember that, the hell, but in community, like that attitude, it's so much more normalized. Like it's so, I don't want to say it's normalized, but it's on every corner. And I think because everyone is in such close proximity to each other and there's no degree of separation at all. Like everybody knows is experiencing it or witnessing it. And it's like, just go with him because he's going to start, or you will make it worse, go wham. And it's like, there's no safety and it's still very much like that.
Yeah. And we can't shy away from that. That's the thing, right? We're not trying to demonize our communities, our people, our men, our women, but we have to face the reality. Domestic violence is a scourge across Australia, and then it's even worse in our own communities for a multitude of reasons. So we can't shy away from it as much as we'd like to dance around the subject. That's why we're having this yarn, because there's that many people that are trying to survive domestic violence right now as you and I are chatting. So
100%. And, had I had not left, like I easily could have been in a body bag or still trying to survive.
So let me go back to first when you were talking about the group that's at the house. Now, at any point, Is anyone calling the police? Like he's getting handling?
No.
Yeah. So why is
Yeah,
that?
no.
Paint the picture why for people that wouldn't know, or like why didn't that
Yeah.
happen for you in that
Oh,
situation?
because it's so normalized. They see it all the time. And, it was me then. It probably would have been some other gummer the next night or later on that day. And this is what I mean, like what it is in community. But I don't even want to say community because we've seen those instances in Cairns and stuff like that too. Like this is what happens in our
Everywhere, yeah.
cities. We've seen the way that mob can go when it's like that. And there is a part of me too that like I don't even want to say gets it because then it would just make
Mm,
me. I know how much us as mob like we don't want to get the police involved, but at what point do we?
mm,
Because like so many of our women are like even if they're not dying, how much harm to their bodies and their brains are they copying because of this?
yeah.
And because people don't want to get the police involved.
So how come you didn't call the police that night and all the
Um,
nights, or did you? When did you get to the point
I
of starting
never,
to?
you know what? I actually, and there's a part of me that always regrets this. I never reported him to the police ever because, and I know exactly where it comes from because my dad, like because of my father and his experience with the justice system, and I never wanted to do that to another black man. So I never ever reported him to the police. There were times when I was in a women's shelter, I was pregnant. And like, I think too, the cycle, it wasn't just the DV, there was like the cheating aspect of it and that too. Like that was all in there. Like it's just so toxic. And what is that? DV Connect? DV Connect flew me home and I was 6 months pregnant. And I knew I had to leave because I was still getting flogged up because he would be going out drinking and all of this and would come home and like bust me up because he'd been cheating or I'd hear things and yeah, I'd get busted up. And I was like, he's gonna kill my baby. He
Mm.
will kill my child.
How did you find the courage when you're pregnant in a community? You haven't called the police. This person's clearly unhinged, will be jealous and no doubt will try and come after you no matter where you go. How did you find the courage from that to go, I need to leave?
I think he got done DUI or something in community. And police had, I don't know why they had come by. Something had happened and they'd come and I must have like had, I think I must have had like a black eye or something. And there was like a young cop and he was so like, he was a young white fella. And I don't know if he had, like in my head, I think he must have been new to the job or something. And he really, you could tell he was freaked out. And that was how I initially ended up at the women's shelter. And it was when I was there and I was on my own and I don't think I even had a phone, like, because
So
no one knew I was coming home.
so the
But
police
anyway,
did the police take you to the women's shelter? Yeah.
yeah, so he was very like not pushy. I don't want to say he was pushy because if they hadn't have kind of intervened at that point, how do I say it? Like as mob, I feel like we're spiritual, and I know that that was an intervention. Now you can call it God, you can call it the ancestors, you can call it divine intervention, whatever it was. But that interaction, I believe, saved his life. Like
Mm.
that's the reason why that child was born. I have no doubt that I would have had a late stage miscarriage because I was 6 months or so at the time, 5.5, 6 months. I was big belly. I was
Mm.
getting busted up. And I had nothing. I had no income. He was an income sis. I was 6 months pregnant. We had not one
Mm.
thing for the baby,
You dropped
you
out
know?
of your studies.
Yes.
How's
Yep.
your, I guess, your physical appearance at this stage and your well-being's that, but like, are you starting to change? Are you still dressing like you, talking like you? Like,
Nah. I was just so like I can't even like it's not even I don't remember like I don't remember that person because she survived that, but it's like, it was almost like I was a shell of myself, if
yeah.
that makes sense. Like I cannot even recognize that version of me.
Sorry, was it to the point that he was like, you can't wear this, you can't wear that, or you just started dressing down so he
Yeah, no,
wouldn't get
I did.
jealous?
I
Yeah.
would
Yeah.
dress down just to avoid that. And there was a point earlier on a few years ago where there was a big footy carnival. I don't think I was pregnant yet. And he burnt all my clothes. So I knew that there was that jealousy there. Like all my shit sis, shoes, right up, dross them, brah.
Oh.
Yeah, like it was fucked up.
It's the breaking down of you can't have nothing nice. Like, don't think you're going to be deadlier than anything because I'm going to keep you here. No one will want you. It's the dehumanizing, the
Yeah,
coercive control mental game that comes with it.
yeah,
Yeah. And at the
yeah.
time, you have no idea about any of the stuff. You're just in it.
I'm just like, this is just my life. Yeah, it was insane. Like, yeah, so essentially I had nothing to dress up in
Mm.
anyway, like fucking nothing. And then I was pregnant too, like, so I didn't fit anything anyway, even if I had those clothes. But yeah, and then it got to a point where I had nothing, my self-esteem was terrible, child had nothing. Yeah, so when there was that intervention, I took it because I knew I had to. I had to.
Was anyone around you at the time, especially being pregnant now, going, sis, you need to get out? Was there anybody checking on
Look,
you?
I was isolated. I
Yeah.
was isolated as hell. Phones that didn't work because,
Mm.
one phone that was going through him. Yeah, like I was on my own essentially. His family who were around would discourage things, but at the same time, like I feel so terrible to say it. Like they all grew up with their dad flogging the shit out of their mom too. So
Yeah. So you escape. You end up going, you get flown away. How long were
mhm.
you away for? And did that, I guess, stop that person from being in your life? What happened then?
No, so it didn't. I knew I had to be away to have the baby. I knew it wasn't over. It wasn't over for me for a very long time, to be honest. And I went back when she was 5 weeks old, 4 or 5 weeks old. It was not long after, so she was born and Cyclone Yazzie had hit. It wasn't long after that I ended up going back. And he was, not that it got better, but it had gotten a lot better, I think, in the excitement of like the baby and blah, blah, blah. And then 4 months had gone by, or 6 months or something like that. It wasn't long. And I'd gone to the doctors for getting fussy on Sisu. And in that time, there wasn't a lot of violence. Like it was just a period of it being quite steady, which was, I cannot really recall many periods like it. There was arguing, but he wasn't like physical with
Mm.
me. Anyway, then it went downhill. I don't know, it's like there's something wrong with this kid, like he don't want Sisu. And I went to the hospital, and they're like, "Well, why don't you just do a pregnancy test?" And I was like, "What for?" Like, since I was pregnant.
Your next daughter, you had her. Yep.
Yeah. And so they told me I was 20 weeks along. And true God, I was like, I found out I was pregnant. And the next week I found out I was having a girl. That's how far along I was.
Wow.
And then they told me I'd be having her in the same year. And I was like, my decline was so rapid. And it wasn't long after that things escalated again with him and I. And I remember being so big belly, but it's almost like I was like, not big belly straight away, but like I found out I was pregnant. It's 20 weeks. And then seriously, like 2 weeks later, I was just
It's
like,
showing and big. Yep.
5 months along almost by this point. It's like, oh, I might die, like
Mm.
again. And I'm like, oh God, like my mental load. Yeah, like terrible. And I remember one day we'd had an argument because, the monthly pay would come in and we'd be broke. And I'm like, oh, we're in this toxic cycle. Yeah, had this argument because I was like, we're doing this again. Like, there's another kid coming. Like, when are you going to grow up? And I had in my arms just, and he hit me.
Mm.
And we ended up getting into this altercation. And his younger brother, who was just as violent, ended up kind of stepping in and like grabbing him. But I knew it was like that was a really big turning point for me because I'd never really fought back. And it was the part of me that's like, sis, it was so stupid of you. I can't even justify it, but I know that my spirit needed to essentially have that fight because I just needed to still have fight in me, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. I don't know if I'm wording it correctly, but like there was that fight and that sort of shifted a lot of things. It was a pretty big turning point for us. it wasn't long after that I ended up taking off, pregnant with her. So traveling, with a newborn baby essentially, then going back pregnant with a young baby, had her. One of the things when I reflect back on that time, I know when I come home, even without having other support and whatever, through DV Connect or whatever, women's services, women's shelters, you could leave then and have security that you could rent a place. It's
Yeah.
one of the things that kind of worries me or that I think about a lot now is what housing looks like for women and children, and essentially everybody. Like it's
Yeah.
an issue that's for everyone. When you leave now, like what options you have, because you can't really just go and no one's looking to rent to a single mother with 4 or 5 kids on the pension. Do you know what I mean? Like it's not affordable now anyway for
That
anybody.
and that's a lot of the reason why women stay in domestic
Hey,
violence situations because of financial control. Like you just don't have the means to leave
I think now so many women would be forced to stay
even more.
because the market just won't allow them to leave. Like you can't. There's no way you can get and it's not even a case of moving somewhere cheaper because there's nothing cheaper there. Like where,
Yeah. And especially in community, there's only a limited amount of housing, and then if
yeah,
you're deciding to leave that community, you're leaving your kinship, you're leaving culture, the kids'
yeah,
connection to culture and the family. Like it's a lot.
it is. And I mean, ultimately, like I did leave eventually, but my kids have definitely paid that price. They have got next to no connection with that family. They have next to no connection with extent. Like they don't even know him. So how are they going to know them? And part of me feels sad, aka / responsible for that. But I'm also not responsible for an adult's choice to cut themselves off from. And I still have to tell myself that.
Yeah.
And I left this man, you know, now he turned 10 in February. And I
Mm.
left when I was just pregnant with him, almost 11 years. And like I'm still giving myself mental pep talks on this situation. And obviously I'm still raising his kids.
Yeah.
But that whole relationship and the results of that I still carry every day.
So you go away again with baby number 2
Yeah.
and you've gone away and that's not the end of it. You go
No.
back again. So what keeps you at this point? Because people listening be like, "Oh no, don't tell me you went back."
What are you doing?
It's that
Yeah.
same yarn that we hear, like, "Oh no, don't go back." You know?
Yeah. And to be honest, like there's no other words I can say other than like I still loved him. Like I
Yeah,
know it's not logical. Like I knew it, but I knew it wasn't over for me. Like I still wanted to try. Like I can see how it benefits us as women and I see why it fails us is we believe in the good in people. So essentially it wasn't over for me. What happened though, 28th of December, they were all in Cairns for his dad's 50th. I get home on New Year's Eve, I get discharged from a hospital and I was real akanga because like I was fright or I was squeezed or whatever. So I come home. So my oldest kid isn't one. And I've come home from hospital with a newborn and everyone's gone drinking because it's New Year's and I was going to be home on my own. And I'm like,
oh my
holy
god.
shit, like I'm freaked out. But it's like, you know, you made your bed, sis. Like everyone had gone out drinking and I'm like, oh, like how do I do this? Like, and I got through it. I get a phone call from the Cairns police station and he had gotten locked up. So he'd gotten blind drunk. He was so drunk, he attempted to rape a backpacker. I was living at Cairns at this point, and he was still in Weeple working for a bit. And by October of that year, he ended up getting locked up. We sort of gone up a few times and seen him. Things weren't good, but because I'd lived in Cairns, that was when I started to build my life again. Essentially, like it still wasn't really over. And then in October of that year, he got sent to prison. And I feel so bad to say this because I really don't like the prison system in our country for a multitude of reasons. And I don't agree that they lock up. Anyway, the point is, at that time of my life, I needed that to break the emotional attachment that I had. So I thought I still loved him. But when he was locked up, like it was a really big shift because we couldn't have contact, and it was really good for me to essentially survive that.
Again, intervention, right? Like divine
Yeah,
intervention yet again. And I know you say, you don't like people getting locked up, but it is a fact. It's a fact that he attempted to rape somebody. And so,
100%. Yes.
so the police have told you this, and then that was kind of what, December. So then between December and October in that timeline, is he then telling you his versions and you're believing him, like because you're under this
So
coercive
we
control?
just had this really weird. I don't even know what the word is. Like we had this weird. It was like a back and forth. Like it was over. We weren't together. I was in Cairns, and at this point, I'd started to sort of drift on a little bit with my life. It was just a really weird phase of the relationship where it wasn't because I had put roots down now and I'd rented that little unit, and it was really good for us to break. My self-esteem and sense of self-worth, there'd been a bit of a shift in it. And essentially, like when I look back and think about that time, it was those sorts of little glimpses of a life outside of being his woman and wanting to do right by the kids that saved me. But it still wasn't over. He ended up getting sentenced, kind of around supporting that. And I can see how this was very much a pull back to my childhood of emotionally unavailable man. So he was up at Lotus for like 20 months. I was sort of up and down a bit, but not having that constant connection and access really helped me to break emotional attachment with him.
So you were going to visit him in the jail,
Yeah.
taking the kids,
Yep.
even
Yeah.
though he had, done this to somebody else. He's now in jail. This is how I just want to paint the picture that for people who are hearing your story, that's how entrenched you were in this
Yeah.
this domestic
Big
violence.
fun relationship.
That's
And
what
people
happens.
say these words like coercive control, narcissist, red flags. But until you're actually in it, um, he got out and was sort of around a bit, had really strict bail conditions. He went back in for a bit, got out. I went up to the two kids were so little, 3 and 2 by this point, and I knew I was going to get pregnant. I just knew that happened. Got pregnant with the third, and we were sitting there, and there was a bit of a conversation on what was going to happen because my lease was up, and he was like, "What are we doing? Are we coming back here? I stay in Cairns. Are we moving home?" And something had happened in community. There was one of these boys, one of them community boys. He was dating this older woman and from another community, and he flogged her up terribly. Like he assaulted her so terribly, like physical, sexual, the whole lot. The only reason why she was alive is there was a really, really tiny hole. The house was locked up. There was music blasting. Like, you know what these parties are like in community, eh? And no one could hear anything apparently. So there was a really tiny gap in the bathroom window or something. And her voice was so hoarse and everything else. There was only, you could hear the faintest cry of her crying out for help. And this young fella had flogged her up, and he assaulted her so terribly that one of her eyes had to be removed or whatever, and she has a glass eye now. And we were sitting there one night. So this had all happened. It was quite fresh. He had obviously ended up going into Lotus or whatever. And the kid's dad said to me, and I just knew within my soul he was telling the truth. And he goes, "If you think you're going to keep drinking and carrying on, what happened?" And like he said that boy's name, "What such and such be do for such and such," like what he done to the girl. He's like, "I'll do worse to you, and then they're going to feed you to the crocodiles." And I knew like he wasn't fucking mucking around. Like I hated that warning. I knew, and it was in that moment it was over. And I don't even know what. I think I'd been threatened so many times before. I'd been busted up, the whole lot. And it was that. Come home. Within a week, I'd gone in, and I knew, like, I told all the doctors I wanted a blood test. Like, my period wasn't even late. Pregnant, I knew it was happening. And I packed up and moved home, and that was it. It was over. Everyone was like, oh, you just, you just done it. And I'm like, it wasn't like that. It wasn't like I just done it. It had been years and years and years of shit. I knew it could have been me if I stayed.
Yeah.
But then as I was starting to understand more and hear more and look at people's or read about people's experiences, and as it kind of blew up a bit more and it's become more of a movement, do I realize how lucky I am? Yeah, like I knew that my chances of, because of that disconnection and that when he was locked up, my chances of just falling into line were extremely minimal, which I'm so grateful for, because it took me a long time to become that person again where I would be willing to essentially displease him or go against the grain. When people sort of hear, it's like, oh, yep, it's almost like, oh, yep, he said this and that was it. Like, it was like a light, not even a light bulb moment. It was just, that was the final straw for me, and I knew I was leaving. And I think there was a part of him that was unsure on if I would go back or not. But I took the 2 kids back down to Cairns with me, packed up my place and said, I'm cruising.
And that brings us to the end of part 1 of Leah's story. In part 2, we'll dive even deeper into Leah's reflections on the domestic violence she endured, her hopes for change, and what healing looks like for her and her children. That's next time on Blak Justice. If you're Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander and need support after listening to this podcast, you can call 13 Yarns support phone line on 13 92 76. This service is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Lifeline is also available to everyone. You can phone them on 13 11 14 or 1-800-RESPECT on 1-800 737 732.